She's the 8-year-old girl who should still be alive. Elizabeth Strews died a slow and painful death, failed by her parents, their cult and the system. Those who should have protected her were blinded by their faith, stopping her diabetes medication and leaving her to die. They believed God would heal her and then resurrect her. Today they learned their fate.
Was there any consideration at any time given to taking her to the hospital?
Not at all. I just trusted in God the whole time.
I gave my little girl what she wanted, and I expect God to look after her.
The cult who killed in the name of God.
The police, government, are trying to pin us for murdering Elizabeth, which we didn't do because we're Christians and we don't murder people, obviously.
8-year-old Elizabeth Strews left to die by her parents, her brother and 12 other members of their cult church who thought God would heal her of her diabetes.
It wasn't an easy decision to do what Elizabeth wanted, but believing in God, I believe He would have healed it as well and will. So,
do you think an 8-year-old is capable of making that decision?
this one was. She was a very strong little lady, and this is what she wanted. I did this for my baby girl.
It upsets me, but I'm not losing my faith in God. I'm not ever going to think He's failed. He can still bring her back, doesn't matter where her body is.
Cult leader Brendan Stevens accusing the justice system of religious persecution.
Motivated by political powers to pursue the church and say that people are not entitled to believe in God.
Now they're convicted killers, all 14 guilty of manslaughter. Family members left to pick up the pieces.
I'm relieved that those responsible were found guilty for their actions. Although we had a good outcome today, I have to acknowledge the system failed to protect Elizabeth in the first place.
One might sound a bit hard. On one level, yeah, I do forgive him, but on another level I go, well, if someone harms you, you can forgive them. But if they harm a poor little 8-year-old defenceless girl, I don't have much forgiveness for that.
Well, Pippa Bradshaw has been covering this tragedy from the very start back in 2022 and she joins me now. Pippa, this is a little girl, 8-year-old Elizabeth, who died from something so treatable, diabetes, and her parents should have protected her. How long will they spend behind bars?
Deb, Kerry and Jason Strews were today sentenced to more than 14 years for the manslaughter of their daughter. They will have to serve 80% of that because the judge ruled that it was an aggravated offence. Now, this was not the first time that they failed their daughter. We know in 2019, when Elizabeth was diagnosed as a diabetic, her parents were charged with failing to provide the necessities of life because they waited too long to take her to hospital then. 2.5 years on, in 2022, they repeated those actions and it had fatal consequences. Today in court, the judge said that Elizabeth's death was entirely preventable and profoundly disturbing. He said they gambled with a child's life because of their extreme religious reviews. He said their prospects of rehab were bleak and he feared that if they had the opportunity, they would do it again. Kerry, Elizabeth's mother, when she was sentenced today, as she was walking out of the courtroom, she smiled and waved at her fellow cult members.
That's hard to comprehend. And what about the cult leader? Because he's still adamant that he's done nothing wrong and that he would do it all again.
Yeah, that's right. Brendan Stevens, he was the one who really encouraged everyone, particularly Elizabeth's dad, Jason Strews, because we know that he only joined the cult months before Elizabeth's death. The judge said that Brendan was relentless in his pursuit of healing Elizabeth with these religious views. He said that even when Jason cracked in the days before his daughter's death, Brendan said, no, you just need to pray more. We're not going to take her to hospital. It's all fine. Just pray more. The judge said, had he not done that, Elizabeth may still be alive today. Now, Brendan received a 13-year sentence. He also has to serve 80% of that. And the judge gave a pretty stern warning in his sentencing. He said that Brendan was a highly manipulative individual and that authorities should keep that in mind when considering if he should be released.
And the rest of the cult? Because it's quite unusual for this many people to be found guilty of manslaughter.
Yeah, that's right, Deb. This is one of the largest mass trials in Australian history. The remaining 11 cult members, which included Elizabeth's adult brother, they were sentenced to between 6 and 9 years in prison. Now, they only have to serve 50% of that time. So with the time already served, which is 2.5 years, two of them got sentenced to 6 years. So they will be eligible for parole in about 6 months' time. And remember, Deb, none of these people are remorseful. In fact, they've gone the complete opposite. They don't regret anything that they did.
And ultimately, this is a little girl who's been let down, who's been left to die by the cult, by her family and by authorities. Is there going to be anyone else held accountable?
Well, that is what is still to come in this saga, this case, I guess, Deb. There will be a coronial inquiry. That was announced just after the verdict last month by the state government in Queensland. We know Jade Strews, Elizabeth's oldest sister, is also suing the state for negligence, saying they failed in taking care of Elizabeth. Jade was at court today to hear those sentences, and there are still a lot of questions that we are yet to get answers for from the Child Safety Department. Elizabeth was failed here, and there are a lot more people that need to be held accountable for that.
And we know that you will be across all of the detail as it unfolds. Pippa, thank you so much.